Hola. Hello. I forgot to speak English. So this is the second video about the ground, the path and the fruit. To start with the grounding, about practice of Dharma, of Buddha Dharma. This is part of the cycles of EDS, Mudra. In English it would be IDS. So I for intuitive, D for Dharma, and study. So it's to study the Dharma, keeping in touch with your intuition, with your artistic, innate intuition. So if we talk about grounding, I was saying the grounding of the body, the grounding of the speech and the mind. This is very concrete. The body is the form, which gives us a possibility to be here on earth. The speech is about everything that is making this body alive, which is the breath, which is the circulation of blood, the circulation of phlegma, the circulation of all that is alive in our body, because your body without that livehood would be just a corpse. And the mind. So the mind is not only the intelligence, it's not only the process of thoughts. The thoughts themselves are kind of part of the speech. It is more really the nature of mind, but also everything that is possible in our mind, which is imagination. Or rather, this imagination has carried us away into some kind of illusion, like if we were completely hallucinating, or rather we are completely lucid and we understand we are dreaming when we dream, or we understand that life around us is not always exactly as it seems to us. Maybe there's something to it that is not so solid, not so graspable, that we cannot grasp all of it. We somehow understand that our mind is where takes place everything, where takes place everything that we experience, and where takes place also everything that we believe in. Mm-hmm. So it is very rich, and at the same time it is fundamentally, completely, potentially, the potential for everything, and at the same time it is completely possible to transform, because there is nothing in our mind that is like solid and fixed and conceptual. So when you want to ground your practice, of course you cannot separate these three. Could we separate? We cannot, because the body without the energy and without the mind is a corpse. The mind without the body is not reachable for us. It's out of our reach. And the energy flows from the form to what we would call the unseen nature of our existence. What we call mind is everything that we are not able to define as a form. We cannot define it as a concept. It's not either an emotion. It's my cat. My cat is just going away from his sleep. The mind is really what we are always experiencing all the time, non-stop. And I am really very aware of that since I was a young child. We are living in something that is far beyond what is the appearances of the world, and all of us, of course. And that's something we can feel. We can feel something goes beyond, no? Beyond the walls, beyond the doors, beyond the body, beyond the life. And it's not about before or after. It's always, all the time like that. And actually, in the sense of art, artists are very, very strongly rooted in that experience of manifesting their perception of this, unseen, I call it sometimes invisible, but unseen is a nice word. I've seen it today. I don't know where, I don't remember where, but it's very nice, unseen. It is I think it came from Ngakma Chögyam, I think. I think that's where I took the word. Thank you very much, Rinpoche. And yeah, we are always in that. We are always in that swimming pool of our mind all the time. But sometimes we suddenly just forget about that. No, we forget completely that it's always our mind that is the place and the atmosphere where everything is taking place, and we just get caught up into the action of what's going on, what we believe in, or what we think happened to us, or how we would react to all of these things. So if we want to ground the body, if we want to ground our speech and ground our mind for the practice, it's impossible to dissociate these three, but of course we can focus more on one or on the other, but we always need the three of them. So like, for example, in this case, imagine that you would like to start because you got interested in the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha taught how it is actually really possible to free oneself from suffering by understanding the causes of suffering and understanding how it works, that we are entangled into the production of suffering, and how it is possible to undo that entanglement, to let it go, and how we could at one point reach our natural treasure, which is enlightenment. And the word enlightenment in English is a little bit fancy. Maybe in Sanskrit, when you say bodhi, means awaken. So awaken is, nowadays it's difficult, no? Because people are all awakened about other things. In the case of the Buddha, it's really, really awaken. How would you understand that easily? It's like if you were dreaming. Imagine you're dreaming that you just earned $1 million, and you were playing a game and you earned $1 million, and you get excited and happy, and you wake up. And so when you wake up, you suddenly wake up all happy, and you understand that it was a dream. So whatever reaction comes after that, when you understand that your $1 million was a dream, or maybe the opposite, you are dreaming that something terrible is happening to you, you are running away from some danger, or you're afraid, or something like that, and then you wake up. And when you wake up, you suddenly realize that you're just in your bed. And that thing that was happening to you that seems really very dangerous, and that you were afraid of, just was a dream. You can also, it did happen to me to dream that you are killed, that you're dead, and usually you wake up and you're dead. So this is what we mean by awake. When the Buddha says he didn't even say he was awakened. He was called like that. He's awakened. It means that he's not entangled anymore in these causes of suffering. How is it that we do? So we really need to understand that. This is why it's intuitive Dharma study. Dharma is everything that will help us, thanks to the lineages, thanks to the teachings, thanks to the transmission, but also thanks to brothers and sisters, as we say, the people, the friends in the path. Because if we really rely on all of these, and the poetry, and the paintings and the sculpture, if we rely also even on cathedrals from other religions, all of that, all the beauty, all the awe of the beauty of human creativity, but also of nature, that is, I would say, some kind of a, some kind of a never-ending support to our practice. Because sometimes when we feel a little bit overwhelmed, or we have all these thoughts we could have that are not easy to deal with, and we get a little bit caught into this closing on oneself, and sometimes, there's the only way to set yourself free somehow is to use some kind of a help. So it's a help that comes from outside, but actually you go a little bit for it yourself, no? Because if you completely close yourself, it's not possible. So, you just look at the sky, you look at the animals in the nature, or you look at a beautiful flower, or you listen at a beautiful music, something like that. And also really the teachings and the brothers and sisters, so that you can slowly get into really understanding yourself, because that's what it's about. It's not about anything else. It's not about any kind of a complicated training. It is complicated if you want to help other people fully and thoroughly, but if it is only about your own secret, your self-practice, it is really about what is useful for you. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about Dharma, so in the case of the Buddha, what is particular in the Buddha is that he does give us some kind of possibility, and this is unique to Buddhism as far as I know, not only to have lots of techniques that are very accurate and extremely, extremely sophisticated, many techniques, but also to ground ourselves in the truth that is free from this idea that we are needing to go somewhere or to get something, or something has to happen, or something, we have to reach something. So there is a paradox always going on. It is like if, in Buddhism it's very, very strong. So that's why it's non-theistic, because there is not some kind of a prediction or some kind of a revelation from some god or some goddesses. It's not really like that. It's a human being that got awakened from illusion and suddenly understood that in the same time things happen the way they do in the dream. So I can be aware of that dream where we are born and then we get old, or we get sick, or we get entangled, or we get in love, all these things we do, and then maybe we can get sick and we die. So in the same time, this is like an idea, no, of progression, like time, no, past, present, future, me, them. So it is very much like in this solid perceptions, no, that time would be something really like stiff with our clocks. But in the same time, this mind, which I was talking about in the beginning, that we are always in this mind all the time, it's happening in our mind, is completely free of this kind of limitations of the space. There's no limitation of space for our mind. Look what I just gave as an example for the dreams. And it's also very much alive when you do art and when you listen to poetry or you create poetry. You understand your mind is so overwhelmingly potentially everything, no limit. And time doesn't exist the way we feel the time exists. It exists in its own way as not linear. You understand? So it's like each moment is deeply that moment, and that's deeply this moment. And it's not like a line. It's like a present one-pointed mind and a present one-pointed mind. It's like inhalation, expiration, inhalation, expiration. And when you dance, it's like this, and then like that, and then you do this, and then you do that. So you are always inside of time, as that time being infinite, but it's infinite each moment. So this is not philosophical in my case. I'm not talking about philosophic here. I'm not talking about science, but you could relate it with science. I'm relating with the relative aspect of time, that we sometimes completely forget that our mind, which is where we are all the time, is unlimited. In the same time, the paradoxy is that it is limited in the sense that the sun rises and the sun sets, and in the mid Maybe you have children, you have to take care of them, for example. Or maybe you have a job and you have to do it. So this is where time catches up, no? That we have to do this, we have to do that. Somebody expected this, expected that. But in the same time, it is not really like that. So this is really what Buddhism is about, is that you start to cultivate, like there is a relationship between me and my friend is really depressed, so I'm given whatever kind of presents I could give to that friend of mine, and at the same time, I really fully understand that the nature of the mind of my friend is also potentially unlimited. My friend has completely the potential to awake and to be free from this trap of feeling completely, I would say, like in the dark, no? So I can, in the same time, be present to that darkness, that difficult moment of my friend, and in the same time, I understand how much it is not really like that. So it's also easy for mothers with children. We understand easily, that the children live in something that is like very painful. The child is crying. The child maybe wants to express something that adults don't understand, or maybe adults think they understand, but actually they don't. And the children, I remember this when I was a child, but the child understands that the parents didn't get it, and so they get in pain. But in the same time, you understand as an adult that this pain is not really something that the child is, how could I tell you? It's not his own nature. No, it's something that's happening, but it's not the real nature of the child. So this is not easy, and at the same time, it is obvious. And you find this middle path. The middle path is all along Buddhism. So if you're looking to ground yourself, you need to ground your body, your speech, and your mind, talking about the form, the energy, all the energy, and how you think, how you see the map of your own, I would say, your own schedule of practice. No, your schedule of practice, I'm not talking about what time you do what. I'm talking about how can you have a vision that you are really on an adventure, and that adventure is never ending. And there is a kind of a schedule, even if that schedule can, like you're driving and you see the road, but then it turns and you don't know what's after you turn, So you cannot foresee all of it. But on another hand, you did have a map and you knew where you were going with this car. So it's a little bit the same, that you have a map that's called the vision of your practice. You have a vision of what it is you are doing. And at the same time, you really know that as you are doing the journey, as you are along on the journey, you are going to find lots of things that are not on the map, because looking at a map is very different from doing the journey, obviously, no? So all these things seem obvious, but sometimes we really get completely, no? We forget the obvious things. And the middle path is really important if we're talking about grounding and we're talking about Buddhism. Because the middle path is not only what we could say, middle path is that you are not involved into existentialism, what means that you don't believe like my ego is here forever and I am forever and I am this thing that is completely solid and will be forever, this me. So this is existentialism. It is not believed in Buddhism that it is true. In Buddhism, we believe that our sense of ourselves is also following a flow of change, of non-ending change. So the core of our awakened mind is not submitted to change, but the way we perceive ourselves usually is submitted to change. And so this sense of our ego as eternal is just bullshit. Excuse me. This is to make it a little bit artistic words. Yeah, and the other side of the extreme is that you would believe nihilism, that nothing exists, nothing makes any sense. You're just born and dead, it makes no sense, and you just have to grasp whatever you can and take advantage of that as quick as you can. So that's also not the path of the Buddha. The path of the Buddha is that you find in between these two that actually there is a paradox going on, which is completely in your body. So this is what I wanted to tell you, is that this paradox is all the time happening. You have your right hand and your left hand. You have your in front and your behind. You have one eye and the other eye, which is related to two functions of our brain, which are not completely perceiving the materialistical world in the same, from the same frame of perception. So we call that masculine or feminine. We call that the sun and the moon. Maybe we call that the day and the night. Maybe some people even get trapped in this good and bad thing, no? But actually, it's all the time happening, and it's also like, you know, the hot and the fresh, the coolness. So when you work with your body, you are working with these things. The grounding of the body is to find the middle of your posture, is to find the middle of how you can breathe, the inspiration and expiration, and bring them also to their middle. You know, how is it that the inspiration and the expiration become the respiration? How is it that all of your energies can find the middle path, which is as much as possible the feminine and as much as possible the masculine, or as much as possible the heat and as much as possible the coolness. And as you bring all of these together, your right hand, your left hand, all of that, you find that in the middle of this perception of your life as being infinite, and you are completely without any limit, and you have all this potential incredible that is above all kind of physical existence, but in the same time you have this condition of being in this body, and it's limited in space and time. So this is what I wanted to talk about now, is that if you have to create your map for your practice and to ground your body, speech, and mind, to ground your mind first is very important. But of course, you need a little bit of good posture to do that, no? Because how are you going to ground your good map of your journey if your body is completely obstructed, no? If your energy cannot flow inside of you properly, and if there's absolutely no joy inside of your mind, it's very difficult, no? So you need to look forwards your friendship. How could you be friend with yourself? How could you also be smart? You know, that you do the best for yourself. That's what I mean by being smart. Of course, sometimes we feel bad. That's okay. We just need to cultivate in ourselves the sense that it is like the weather. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's sunshine, sometimes, but that we can trust the core of our willingness to be free from all entanglement and all limitations. Not in the sense that your body is not under the rules of the 5 elements, but more in the sense that the core of your true nature, your deepest nature, is not limited, so that you can trust that. So like when you feel a little bit down or bad, you find a way to take a good posture and to breathe. And we will do other videos maybe more focused on that, or maybe we can do even meetings focused on these things, very more technical. Right now I wanted more to give an idea more precise about this grounding, when we say ground, path, and the fruit. So the map we need to start our journey is to understand what is that idea of the Buddha that we can get free from suffering. So the Four Noble Truths, no? And basically, if I don't get too much into details about this, the idea is that there is suffering, and I will check if that's true. Is there suffering? I'm a human being. Of course, here I have my wonderful cat. I don't want to bother him, but I don't know if you can see him. He's trying to find a way to relax. Where are you? I cannot see him. Maybe you see him. He's trying to find a little way to relax on my lap as I'm talking. My cat does understand suffering, but he does not understand why does he suffer, where does it come from, how could he free himself from suffering. But he does give me some good moments, no? So he does help me with my own suffering, maybe. Or if it's hurting somebody, somewhere in my body, maybe he just comes on my body and stays on that place and does a little bit of ron, ron, ron. So he has this instinct. So this is the intuitive Dharma study, is that you understand that the Buddhas talked about suffering, and the suffering is basically everything that we feel that makes us feel maybe really bad or really nervous or really irritated or completely useless or completely hopeless, depressed. And it can be also that we feel ill. Maybe we feel, wonderful at one moment and suddenly we get sick. And when we get sick, it's suddenly the end of everything. So all of this suffering of also losing somebody you love, or maybe the suffering that you have to be all the time with somebody that you don't love. Maybe you are in a jail, and in that jail there is a person that doesn't treat you well and you have to be with that person all the time. Or maybe you married with somebody and that person, it was wonderful with that person for 1 year or two, and then it's not wonderful anymore. So all these things, you were expecting something and you don't get what you expected. Or maybe you got what you expected, but it doesn't satisfy you. All these things, no? So there's also the great suffering, which are very obviously not having food, not having water, being afraid, all of these things, no? Or not being loved by anybody, not being able to find a way to live that is the way I would feel appropriate. All of these sufferings that we can experience. So the Buddha says, yes, suffering is there, no? It is part of human condition, and animals' condition too, and ghosts' condition too, and God's condition too, and warriors' condition too. And then, the hell condition, very much so. So the contemplation of suffering is important, because the contemplation of suffering is the key, because you're not running away from suffering. You are understanding that suffering happens for a reason that is much deeper than appearances. And here, as human beings, nowadays, it is very important that we enter into this contemplation, because we are so powerful. We have created so much materialistical, powerful tools, which are extension of our beliefs and of our thoughts and of our certainties, that we could be much more hurtful than if we did not have these tools. Things didn't change that much. What changed is that we have tools we didn't have before. So we need to deserve these tools, in the sense that we could maybe make these tools the tools for awakening for the Buddhi, for the goodness of all beings. And I'm not talking about the goodness that is not bad. I'm talking about beyond good and bad. I'm talking about this nature of our mind, which at its core is beyond the good and bad. But of course, if you want to do the journey to understand suffering, you need to cultivate something in your being that makes you a little bit okay with yourself. So you do need some kind of good energy. It's not because you want to be good and you want to judge people who are bad, or you think this person is morally like you think people should be and this one is not. This is not really the Buddhist path. Buddhist people, usually, we should not be too much criticizing others, you know. We do have a clear vision of what's going on, and we can point out something that is wrong. It's different from using your energy and your speech to point out the defects of individuals. Because the problem of this is that nobody wants to be accused by everybody, especially on the internet. It's so easy, you know, of all the defects we have. So the good energy is a good energy that you create by appropriate behavior, which does not produce suffering too much. So it's like the first step, no? It's like if you can eat properly a little bit, not be too much stiff, but in the same time, don't be too much just eating all the chocolate you want or all the wine you want or whatever it is, no? You have to find how can you find this way that at one moment it's healthy. In your sense, it doesn't have to be the healthy of other people. You have to get in friendship with yourself, and you will slowly really know what is more healthy for you with your condition, and how is it that at one moment you can, for example, let go of some problem you have because your journey is much more interesting than this problem. And it will happen. It happens. I really can tell you that. I live it, you know, that at one point you don't need anymore certain things that you needed before, like imagine it's food, you needed so much, or like you needed to smoke, no? And then you start to understand your practice is so deep, it's so interesting that you just can drop it. But you're not forcing yourself to drop it. You are going there because it's really a friendship with yourself. You're really helping yourself. So like you decide, at one point I will be able to let go of things that hurt me. And in the same time, I'm not putting too much pressure on myself so that I can never stop. And you know, trees grow through the walls of stones because their roots never stop. That's how they do it. So if you do the same thing, and you know, the tree grows, it looks like it's so slow, but it's not that slow. If you have a house with an open roof, the trees grow in that house. It doesn't grow that slow. After like 10 years, there's no more house. It's full of trees, you know. So if it rains enough, no? So it's the same thing. Like if you do your journey of goodness and you help yourself, you're friend to yourself, you understand, I look at suffering, I understand suffering, and I'm not running away from suffering, but I'm trying to understand why the teachings are given to me the tools so that I can get free from that. Why? Because it doesn't make any sense anymore. You know, it's like the skin of the snake when it goes. The snake has a new skin. You don't need it anymore, you know. At one point, you don't need it anymore. You don't need to, that suffering just goes away because the practice really did that job. It really did the job to reveal the gold. You know, it's like if you're a piece of gold and it looks like a dark stone, and then when you work on it, you can see it's gold. So the causes of suffering, you're trying to understand how are the causes of suffering. And the causes of suffering I'm not going to comment now. We can comment them on another day. But you do contemplate these causes, like how can I create suffering, like killing beings, killing people who want to live, or insects, or how could I just avoid killing so much? How could I kill less? Or at least I could decide that I will not kill any human beings. I can decide that I'm not going to kill animals. Or maybe I can decide that I will avoid killing insects as much as I can. Things like that, because nobody likes to be killed. How can I avoid taking things from people? So of course, it means that I'm also being aware that if I want to take something from somebody, it's in my mind, so there's a mind poison there, but then not doing it. Just don't do it. And then sexual behavior, not forcing anybody, and not also making some kind of emotional blackmail to people. As ladies, we can do that very well. Not driving people crazy for sex. But it doesn't mean that sex itself is bad. It means that it's a power. So when you're dealing with power, it's very important to be mindful of how this power needs to be honored. You need to honor the power you have, and the power that does give to other people some kind of a proposal about relationship. How can you make that honorable and very noble, and very beautiful also? Yeah. So about speech, speaking bad about people, we don't like it. I don't really like it that much, no. Of course, I will do my best to not be sensitive about what people say about me, but I know that basically I don't like if people say bad things about me, so trying to do my best to behave my speech. Lying is really, really a big creation of suffering, very good one. It's very obviously present everywhere, so maybe we could avoid lying. Speaking bad words to people, telling them things that are very insulting them is not really nice. And talking too much. The problem when we talk too much, which we all usually do, most of us, it leads us to do all the bad things that we can about speech, because at one moment there's nothing else to say than something that you shouldn't say. Just because you just can't stand your silence, you just can't stop trying to show yourself on the internet and say things. So being careful, about talking too much. Like I remember when the girls, they become friends, and when they start to call each other every day, it usually ends up with some kind of problems. Yeah. I've noticed that. I have been a teacher for a long time, and I noticed when my students start to do that, my close students, they start to call every night somebody to speak for 2 hours, 3 hours. That would usually end up with something, I would say some kind of a dark event would come out of that. Jealousy or whatever, or talking bad about somebody or things like that. So we do that. And here the idea is that if we do that, you're creating a bad energy. You create a bad energy, it's more difficult to ground yourself. How can you ground yourself and have a map of your journey if you behave like that? So you have to do that the same way I said from the beginning, in the middle path. You cannot completely control yourself, otherwise you get completely nuts, and then you become very neurotic. But you can a little bit be careful, no? You slowly find that actually you're happier. you get happier. Yeah, it's just that in the beginning, the problem is the habit. We have habits, and our mind, bad behaviors are more difficult. So we won't talk about them now. They are basically to hate or to be too much attached, and to really, really not at all understand anything about the true nature of our own mind, or to not respect at least that possibility. So yeah, we try to find what is healthy. So this is very important. So this is part of the map. It's how you start your journey. So like if you're going in a boat, you're going to go from Portugal to United States on a boat. You have to prepare the boat and to prepare the food and the water on the boat. And then you have to know you have to have a captain for your boat. You have to know where to go, how to go, and then inshallah you get there. Yeah, but you do need your boat. So this is preparation. And then I would propose to you the first contemplation. So you find a way you could sit somewhere. Maybe you prefer to stand up, but usually sitting is more comfortable. Babies are very good sitters. Look at the babies, how they sit as soon as they can sit, They have very, very nice, relaxed positions, but you can sit on a chair or whatever. And you just feel your breath. You don't need to control your breath in this case. You don't need to make any technique. You just bring your mind to your physical presence and relax without sleeping. But you find, how could you relax? How could you let something inside of you settle down a little bit? And then you think about the fact that you are a human being. What is that to be a human being? Are you free? Are you somebody who is a slave? Or, are you a slave? Do you have somebody who enslaved you? Or are you free? If you come to the conclusion that even if you do have duties, you are basically free, that's really very lucky. You're very lucky. Is your body okay in the sense that you can walk, that you can do things? Or maybe if you can't walk, you do have means to rule your life, even if you have a little bit of problems with your body, but you can do things. Is it possible for you? And then, is your mind okay? Is your everyday life okay, that you have enough to eat? Maybe you have enough to drink to be alive. Maybe you have a place to sleep. Maybe you have clothes. Maybe you even have friends. But what you have that is really precious is Dharma. You do have Dharma, because nowadays with internet we do have access to Dharma, all of us, which is incredible. And my friends, it is for free. You can really get all the teachings thanks to internet for free, which is incredible. It's incredible. It's like if everybody has access to a treasure. Because the treasure, you already have it. It's just that the access to your treasure, rarely do you have it. So this is very important, and we call this the precious human condition. In Tibetan schools, it's very well described, and it is very important to understand that, because if you understand that you have a very precious condition as a human being, because as a human being you can make choices, as a human being you can learn how to do anything you want if you concentrate on that thing and if you put some kind of energy in it, yeah, with both hands. Whatever it is, at whatever age, if you put your heart into it, and if you, put your heart, it's also your love, and your energy and your will, and you really invest in that. That's what we call refuge. That's what Buddhists do, they take refuge. Taking refuge is that you commit to your path and you commit to your inner Buddha, which is the nature of your mind, and you commit to the whole help that exists. That could be, for example, just the fact that on the internet you can find teachings, that you can find help, you can find books, you can find sculptures, drawings, poetry. And please understand that as a Buddhist, you're going to see that all the poetry of the world, of all the cultures, can be completely, not all of the poems, but I mean, in all cultures, there are poems or there are music or there are things that can be helpful on your path as a Buddhist. You don't have to not be Buddhist to read Sufi poetry or Christian poetry, because at the end, when human beings get free, they are very much sensitive to the same kind of goodness, you know? So, like, for example, this morning, this is how I got inspired to do this video today. If you talk about intuitive Dharma study is what I'm talking about. Intuitive is that I just opened this book, and this book is in French. I'm sure it exists in English for sure. It's The Life of Lalleshawari. In this case, these poetries were translated to French by Daniel Audier. But actually they were translated from English. So you can find this poetry in English. Lalleshawari, we call her very often Lala. She's not known as a Buddhist. She's known as a Shivaist from the Valley of Swatt, from, if I'm not wrong, the 13th century, I think. Or maybe I think it's 13th century. But anyway, she's from the same century as Milarepa. And she really left incredible poetries which were kept by singers and artists, because she is known for having been a lady who was hanging around free and very often naked, dancing and singing her devotion for Shiva. And the poetries were also known in the Sufi world of that part of the world, because the Sufis used to be very fond of Lala because she was a genuine saint. She started her life as a young girl devoted to Shiva, and then she really became completely enlightened by her practice. And I love her poetry very much, and I also worked my dance based on devotion for her. So you see, she's not a Buddhist, no problem. And here I'm going to translate them. I'm going to translate the poem from French. Excuse me, I don't have the English version. I think it's very nice. It says like this. So the Guru gave me the teaching. He told me, put your research upside down. Don't look outside anymore. Look inside of yourself. It's more precisely, put your sight on the self. When the mind that makes differences gets asleep, I brought this reality to my heart and I started to dance naked. You see, this gives me a little bit of tears. And, you know, when your skin goes up like that, this is a good feeling when your skin comes up like that, because it helps you to practice. It makes you find motivation and help, because Lalleshawari is in your life suddenly just because these words came from her. And you can have her as a relationship with you. She can be there with you. You know, there's a very famous Buddha teacher in Japan. He died, he was 100 and, I don't remember if it was 108 years old or 105 years old, I don't remember exactly. And he danced until he was 100, but he started to be a dancer at 40 and something, very late. And he really started as an artist because he was devoted to a flamenco dancer which was called La Argentina. She was from South America. And he was so impressed by this woman that she became his Dakini. She became his goddess. And it is said that even he had notes for his dances, and he would put an homage to her on each page because he was fully devoted to her. So you see, you could be fully devoted to whatever it is, or even you could be fully devoted for a few people. And they help you because you are devoted to that path, you are devoted to them, and they help you first to build this vision, this grounding of your vision, but also to be alive. You know, it's not an intellectual setup. So you can explore this preparation of your journey by dancing, by poetry, by music. You really need to make it something that gives you joy and that gives you the richness that you don't need money for this. You have, excuse me, I'm going to get very passionate, but we really need to get completely free from this money stuff. This is so stupid. Let it go, this thing about money and fame and having so much success. What for? We all end up the same, on the ground or in the fire or in the water, dead. Don't get entangled with these things. Understand that your treasure is not about money. It is not about fame. It is not about any of this. It's not about what people think about you. But of course, you can have good time, you know? Of course, maybe you become famous. Why not? Maybe you become rich. Why not? That's not the topic. The topic is that the richness is already there, but you need to get access. And to get access, you need to have a vision. And to have a vision, you have to study a little bit whatever human beings left for you, like your language, for example. You speak a language because other people created the language. You know, it's not like if you just were born and you could speak, no? So you also need to get advantage of everything you can learn, and don't get confused because nowadays you have access to all of it, everything. So it's like in the supermarket, you cannot buy all the shampoos. Actually, I have a shampoo. I think I have the same shampoo for 5 years or like that because I don't really need to use that much. But anyway, you have to choose one. Yeah, you have to choose one. And I think it's the same for your path because you can use all the path and get inspired by all the wonderful creativity of human beings, artists and poets and religions, all of them. But if your body, your speech, and your mind don't have a concrete and very precise path, it does end up confused. Because as you evolve, as you get free from suffering, you become more and more spacious. And you become more and more everything. So to get really completely open and completely blossoming, it's much easier if you don't mix up hundreds of thousands of techniques. Because then you have a lot of expectations because this technique looks so fancy and this one looks so exciting and this one looks so incredibly promising. But at the end, it all ends up the same, you know. The nature of your own being is the treasure, and you don't need something to be full of expectations because it does bring deceptions. And if you are especially somebody who's practicing the Dharma, it is important to understand that the Buddhism does give you really excellent tools. They are the best tools on the world, the best things that exist in the world. But it is so rich that you need to find, it's like a huge jungle. You have to find which is the path that you're going to take in this process. So if you are, for example, practicing the beginning, like this book is, I really recommend this book if you are beginners. So this book, it's a big book. Huh? There are 3 books. Huh? So this is the first book. It's called The Path of Individual Liberation by Chögyam Trungpa Rinpoche. It's a wonderful work. It's very good. It's Shambhala. Shambhala published this. It's very good. You have it in Kindle too. I have it both in books and Kindle. So of course, then for the Mahayana, you have this one. It's the second book. So you see white, red. The second one is the Bodhisattva Path. The first one was individual liberation, and the third one is only for the people who want to dare to do Tantra, the real Tantra. I'm not talking about some neo-Tantra, I'm talking about the genuine Tantra. So we won't talk about Tantra for now, but if you are starting, the first thing I think I could tell you, because now I have a little bit of experience. It has been, I think, I don't even remember. I think it's like, 40 years since I practice and study. So now I'm starting to feel very comfortable with this. And these books are really good, They're really, really good. The Tibet is the highest area of the world, and for centuries they were kind of on their own, with not much problems, no wars, no problems. They didn't have much problems, for a very long time. And they dedicated themselves, and they also didn't have much distractions, because there's not so much food, there was not really lots of things that you could get distracted with. And so they really dedicated, like a national priority, the whole country to the Buddha Dharma. And Tibet extends in the Himalaya because this way of understanding the teaching of the Buddha and putting together lots of knowledges by Guru Padmasambhava. This is like the main guru, that he is historical and at the same time he's symbolical of this bringing together all the Buddhism in one school that has all of the different, how you say in English, fan. Like a fan, you open the fan and you have all the different possibilities. And so they really, really had the time and had very, very concentrated people with lots of strength, of inner strength, that created an incredible amount of spiritual transmission. It's incredible. And in these conditions, in this also high spot, very close to the sky and close to environments that are kind of lacking, of distractions. The light, and even the clouds, there's very often no clouds. So in that environment, they really created an egregore of wisdom. And of course, there's everything else, everything human beings do, they do it too, they're not like, don't be judgmental. I already said that, be careful, no? This Christian, monoteistical way of thinking that we should judge each other and all that. This is so terribly wrong. This is terribly dark. We think we can do it, but we should not do that. Everybody has problems. Everybody has sometimes bad feelings. Everybody does bad things. It's just like that, It's just normal. So I'm not saying that these people are superior to others. I'm saying that they did create some kind of a gift for the whole world, that just when they had to run away from Tibet, it's like it falls down from the Himalayas to the whole world. So it's really important to appreciate that and to honor that and to preserve that and to practice that. It's very important, yeah. And so they did something, is that as they really gathered for many years together to make translations and to create also the Tibetan way of writing things, and then to find out how are they going to do. They had an issue at one point, and the issue was, are we going to do a Buddhism that is the direct path, which means that you believe that you get awakened now? Or are we going to do a progressive path, which means you have to do this, and then you have to do that, and then you have to do this, and then you have to do that? Yeah. And they kind of argued about that, and they did many kind of meetings about that. They were great, great masters all together with the king. It's incredible. It's a very, very amazing story, actually. Yeah, it's incredible. With lots of incredible people, because they were not all monastic, Some were monastic, some were yogis, some were translators. There were women too, like Yeshe Tsogyal, a famous woman. She's really recognized as a Buddha, and she's a woman. Many people don't know that in Tibetan Buddhism, we do have women that are at the same level as Buddhas. It's very important that we acknowledge this, no? Maybe it's time people would know that, no? So Yeshe Tsogyal is also there, and at one point the king decides, okay, I'm not going to promote the immediate path, I'm going to promote the progressive path. And if I interpret that myself, my interpretation is that anyway, you do get enlightened immediately. So it's always immediate path, but many people are not able to. And this is where it's very important also, like I heard yesterday, Ngakma Chögyam, who is a master I really like very much. He's in England, the Aro lineage. I like very much his work, and he's a very interesting person. And his wife is also incredible, the Kanto Dechen. They teach together. And so he was saying, some people think that you can practice directly Dzogchen and nothing else. And it's never happened. And I could say, in my point of view, he's completely right, because I understand what Dzogchen is about, and I always loved it. Since the very beginning, my favorite was Dzogchen. When I was very young, teenager, I was attracted to Dzogchen poetry. Dzogchen means great perfection, and that is the direct path. That is the path where you take your fruit as the ground, your fruit as the path, and your fruit as the fruit. So there's no ground, there's no journey, it's already there. But it's not that, like in my case, I think sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't happen. And actually the times it happens is more like maybe when I'm really fully involved in a dance, things like that, or fully involved in something like teaching or sharing teachings. But in daily life, it doesn't happen all the time. So you really need to work with yourself with some tools that are progressive. And why? It's not because you need to know lots of things. I'm telling all this because I have lots of talks with friends who are Buddhist, or I look on the internet and I see so many people feeling confused or rejecting even their practice because they get entangled into talking too much about other teachers and criticize the teachers, and I don't understand why they do that. But anyway, because if you understand that maybe you're going to teach, and then maybe you're not perfect either, but you do your best, and they all do their best anyway. So, or maybe they get at one point that they didn't understand that this was all about themselves. They thought it was something out of themselves. Maybe it's exotic, no? Maybe you can look exotic, like India. India is so cool. I don't know what is cool about India, but I love India, but it's not really cool. But anyway, you have spices and colors and all. Yes, but Buddhism is not about that, no. And so at one point you did years of practices, you do lots of things, and you think Dzogchen is best, but you just get at the point that you're not enlightened at all, and you're not free, and you didn't get it, Why? Because you didn't understand at one point that the reality is always about yourself, but you need tools, and the tools have to apply to your reality, which is body, speech, and mind. Yeah. So you have to become a little my guru, Your guru is the guru who helps you, but the guru yoga is that the guru grows also inside of your heart. That's why you always bring him in your heart. Excuse me. It's because the books, they kind of slipped on the cat, and the cat was surprised. Maybe you can see my cat now. Because, can you see him? May? I think you saw him. Anyway, I'm going to finish this video soon. It's 1 hour already. Yeah, so just to finish what I was saying, when they created all this progressive school, it's not that you need to learn more things and collect more things and become some kind of a headache of everything you have been learning, and that you don't even know anymore, and then you have to do some kind of something else because you're not able to. No. If you need a healing, you need a healing. If you need a shaman to heal yourself, you heal yourself. But that doesn't mean you don't have your path. Your path is your path. You know, the path is going to help you heal, but sometimes you need a healing. It's just like the car. Sometimes you need a mechanic. You know, life is practical. You know, and what you are doing with all these practices is more that you're letting go of things you don't need. So all the practices, they are like a software. Each software, like if you're practicing Shenrezi, it's the software of compassion. You are creating the software of compassion. But of course, your software of compassion is going to meet everything that is the opposite of compassion. And Tara is going to be your software of action. But everything that is action is going to meet also the opposite. You're not able, or you have obstacles, things like that. And all the Buddhism is giving you tools that you can work with things so you can let go, for example, in the case, for example, of compassion, you can let go slowly of your anger and your resentment and use the energy of that. And this is where you're going to learn how to work with your emotions so that it can become a root of action for the benefit of all beings. So all the problems, all the difficult things, all the adversities, all the enemies, they become the way that you practice in order to give yourself into the manifestation of the goodness that is hidden inside of you. That's wonderful. That's a hero. That's the work of the hero, you know. That's how you become a really, really brave bodhisattva. Yes. And you also need to find how can you understand what is patience, how can you understand what is wisdom, how can you understand, and all of these things, it's like, it's not something that you go and you buy it and you got it from somebody. It's more that you let go of all what was covering these qualities that are human naturally. You see? So the progressive path doesn't mean that there's no direct path. It just means that you reach the direct path at one moment on this journey. Maybe at one moment before even you reach what they call the Dzogchen. Maybe the Dzogchen comes before. Maybe your Dzogchen comes very early. Or maybe you do all the practices and you reach the Dzogchen, the great perfection. But it's not really, you're not really there yet. So you have to go a little bit backwards because you need other tools, because you're not going to pretend that you're just some kind of a great Dzogchenpa. It's not true, you know. Because this is what we learn in the mind training. We learn that we are always the witness of the truth inside of ourselves. Nobody else knows. That's why you have to be your friend, because you're the only one who really knows. That really knows. I mean, be careful, because sometimes we just pretend we don't know. Yeah, because sometimes you discover that you were so jealous, but you didn't notice. And suddenly you notice, oh, I was jealous, I didn't notice. You have to be slowly, like she said, my lady, Lalleshawari, you have to turn your mind on yourself, not to criticize yourself, but to be truthful, genuine to yourself, and brave, because you understand that suddenly all this jealousy is an energy. This energy, you have tools to work with it, and you can let go of the aspect of duality that makes the jealousy become resentful and mean and all, and that is going to lead you to suffering and lead others to suffering. And then we just get into another world that is not your precious human body. The precious human body is where we can do all of this I have been talking about. I hope this was clear. I hope you didn't get lost in everything I was talking about. So let's make a recap very easily. We're talking about the grounding of body, speech, and mind, but we cannot untangle these three. But now we have a body, we try to find a good posture, a good breath, relax a little bit, and we focus on the mind. The mind is, you have to create the map of your journey. The map of your journey is, how can you free yourself from suffering? What are the causes of suffering? What is the meaning of how others suffer? And then, do I have a precious human body? And is this precious human body something that I really need to honor and to give a value to that, because I'm so lucky that I have a precious human body, and I should really not waste it in stupid, aggressive, war-mongering things, really not. And I don't need to judge others if they do that, because if they do that, it's because they are suffering. As a Buddhist, you're not judging people who are completely aggressive and wrong, because you understand that they are suffering. That's what suffering is. Suffering is actually wrong view. When you don't understand that the human being is not done for this stupid behaviors and these stupid beliefs and this stupid kind of completely illusional, illusional traps. Yes. So this is what I was talking about. So I really invite you to look into your human existence and to look into how you can bring what's really your treasure as much as possible to access. So you're doing a journey, you need a map, you need friends, you need tools, you need to understand how you're going to do it. You need to understand it's always about yourself in the beginning, that you cannot really help so much others as long as you don't understand a little bit of yourself and be truthful to yourself. And then that you start to understand that it does work, actually. It's working. You are able to be a little bit more healthy, to be a little bit more steady, to be a little bit less entangled. You understand, have a little bit flexibility. Your mind becomes a little bit more flexible, but in the same time, you understand the focus is so important, because you focus and you never stop, like the trees go through the rocks and through the walls, because they never stop. This is taking refuge. It's your priority, it's your treasure, it's your richness, it's what makes you incredibly powerful. And the technology is an extension of the human beings, so we are responsible to really be, to deserve all of these tools we have. Otherwise, it's not okay. Thank you very much.